We are Pop Psychology Live. If you go to YouTube, that will be youtube.com/Pop Psychology Live. And it's brought to you by PhoenixTrainingGroup.com, workplace violence prevention program that I have run for, now 42 years with behavioral health and health care and ERs and law enforcement, federal agencies, social services, schools, all over the country. Basically anywhere that you encounter cranky people, which is these days is everywhere on earth. Yeah, we're starting to expand now into Target stores and things like that because we're having more incidences of
just mass clashes on the street now.
Mask aggression going on there. So yeah,
park, you can find our people training on.
Oh, it's just sad out there. My God, yes. So I am Doc Elliot. I've been a crisis negotiator specialist for over 40 years. And I've worked with behavioral health and forensic psychology, doing profiling as well. And this is Scott Galbraith, who needs no introduction. He is one of the most prolific computer geniuses on earth, with a bunch of other things that he does that's pretty cool too. So,
well, that was sure wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And as Scott mentioned, don't take this seriously, please. This is pop psychology. Another term for that is psychobabble, and that's basically what we are going to be presenting. Each episode is just that psychobabble out to the general public. So this is pop psychology. You'll hear the worst psychological advice and viewpoints you'll ever hear. So please don't listen to us. Don't follow the viewpoints. And if you're experiencing any mental health emergencies, please turn this off and seek the proper care or call 911. So.
And if we do happen to say something that you see as useful advice or something to some viewpoint that you might want to adopt in your own life, forget that. Just don't take that approach at all. This is not for you if you are actually vulnerable to believing us.
Yeah, please. Right. You can drop a comment on YouTube. That's fine, and we will read them. I'm not sure what we'll do with that, but we will read them and mold our future shows based upon some of those comments. And then, of course, in the future, we will be taking calls and chats from the viewers and things later on.
That's in the works.
It is.
The platform is in the works now. This is a good time to remind everyone that you can't sue us. Everything we say is not serious. It can't be defamatory.
Please don't.
Yeah, we're not saying anything bad about you when we're saying something bad.
No, and we don't have any money anyway, so there's nothing.
Away, I guess. Go for it. Whatever.
I've got an old Miata in the back that doesn't even run. If you want that, please take it.
I've got a bicycle trailer like in my garage.
Yeah,
that the wheels are off it.
Take that. That's
you can take
fine,
that,
but nothing else.
It'll be more like a sad garage sale if you sue us.
That people walk up and they have that like, oh, I'm going to look for cool stuff. And and they just walk away.
They just walk away.
That would be it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So you can have it. Take it, please. And there's way too much junk anyway. So please, at least sue me as much as you want the junk that's on the property. You can have all of that. So, please, yes.
Help us clear out.
Oh, in fact, the veterans truck just took about 12 boxes of stuff from the house today. Just today.
Wow. You should have saved it for the lawyers.
Yeah. Right. Here's the box of clothes for my payment from the 50s.
And they weren't even good ones. They're just shirts with like rips in them.
Oh,
and
it was.
stains.
Oh, it's all stuff from the 50s and
socks.
60s. It was horrible. How do you like my shirt? Here.
I saw it.
Yes.
I can't. A place for rest.
For rest, yes. Established 1878. I believe.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Arkham Asylum,
So
sanitarium.
is that a real one, or because
Oh, that's the one
that's the
from
Batman one?
Batman. Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if there's an actual
Well,
sanitarium named
yes,
after.
there actually is. The sanitarium that they based that upon was actually a couple of them. One was Bellevue Hospital, Bellevue
New York.
Hospital, New York. Right, that was the most notorious psychiatric sanitarium in the country. It's just always been, it was called the Snake Pit. Lots of movies refer to Bellevue Hospital. There were a couple of movies that were made about being locked up in Bellevue Hospital. Even they committed Santa Claus in A Miracle on 34th Street. They took him to Bellevue Hospital and committed Santa Claus.
Barney Miller. They used to talk about it on Barney Miller.
Yes, right, exactly. So it is the actual oldest hospital in the country. That's where all healthcare started in this country, because the first hospital on the location of Bellevue was started back in the colonial days. So they started a little encampment hospital, and you can actually stand on the spot where George Washington brought his troops in to get cared for. I mean, that's how old Bellevue Hospital is, right? And so it was notorious for its treatment of human beings and human life for just hundreds of years. And then they finally, we became civilized, and mental health actually had a plan starting in the 50s, and then it got good, and then it became a stellar facility now. So now it's one of the most recognized hospitals in the world. It's got medical and behavioral health and forensic and networks all over the place, and it's associated with all the universities now, and it's one of the most progressive and state-of-the-art hospitals in the world now. But it had dark days, and so those dark days spawned the Arkham Asylum. The other one was Danvers State Hospital, which was one of the most scariest hospitals in the country, and that was in Massachusetts. Actually, it was Salem. It's not far from Salem, and you know how they did the witch trials in Salem, right? But the actual executions were not held in town. That's just unseemly. So
This is the part where our kids play.
Exactly right. It was untidy. So they not to mention the fact that the evil spirits might come out and waft into people's homes. So
and you don't want that in your soda fountain.
Exactly. So they did the actual executions outside of town, and the actual area location where the executions were performed was the property that later on in the 1800s Danvers State Hospital actually built the hospital on. So it had kind of a double mojo feel to it. It was built on the Salem witch trial execution property, basically, and then it was one of the second probably most notorious sanitarium in the country. Scary place. They used it in lots of movies. After they closed it down, they used it for a movie set for years. There was a Session Number 9 was filmed there, and it was about a team of asbestos removal guys that came in to remove the asbestos in an old sanitarium, and of course the mojo got to them, and the evil spirits and possessed them, and then turned on each other, and they were killing each other, and it was a crazy thing. David I can't remember, David Caruso, the actor David Caruso was in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah. So from was it NCIS? I think it's one of the NCISs. I'm not sure. But yeah, he was in that movie. So yeah, that was a notorious place. So it was kind of like between that one and Bellevue. That's where the inspiration for Arkham Asylum came about.
Okay.
It's your history psych lesson for today.
Nice. Well, I always appreciate those.
Yeah. I'll be going to Missouri in October, and then I'm coming back, and then I'm doing a keynote speaking engagement in Atlanta for workplace violence and negotiation. There's some event there, and so I have to, not have to, I have a choice, actually. They invited me, and so I'm choosing to go. I didn't have to
That
go.
was nice of them.
Yes, it was very nice of them. And so I am choosing to go there and give a keynote speaking engagement, which is kind of fun. So while I'm driving to Atlanta and back, I'm going to go the southern route through Louisiana and Alabama and all those states, yeah, where they still have the old sanitariums sitting around. In the West Coast, the Western United States, they've torn down most of all those old asylum sanitariums that were built in the 1800s, early 1800s. Most of the West Coast, the first one started coming in about 1875 or so. I think that was the first, or the earliest one on the West Coast, I think was about 1875, finished about 1880 or so, and several about 1888. But the earlier ones, 1830s, 1820s, 1840s, 50s, were done on the south and the East Coast. Okay. So some of those still exist, and they are still around. So that's my hobby, is to go and find the sanitariums that are lying around and do pictures and video of them. So,
and from what I understand, you also generally you do sometimes a historical workup about the sanitariums, right?
I do. I'm on the board, historical board of several state hospitals around the country, and so what we'll do is we'll dig into the tunnels, because all sanitariums, and I call them sanitariums because that's what they were called back then. In the 1800s, they were called sanitariums and asylums. I don't call them that. They're behavioral health facilities now. But back then, they were all sanitariums. So they all had tunnels, because they took up a lot of space. Some of them were 3,000 acres, 5,000 acres. And so the buildings were spread out so much, and they were all out of town. You could never have a sanitarium in town. They were always out, way out of town. So that's why they were called the farms, because they were self-sufficient. They had their own farming crops and cows and barns, and they were very self-sufficient. The patients actually made their own clothes and mattresses and pillows, and even the higher functioning patients would sew and create the straitjackets for the lesser functioning patients.
Wow.
which I could just imagine them. Yeah, this is for Daryl. I can't wait to finish this one. I hate that guy.
he took my Wheaties.
Right. So since they were so large, they had to be connected by tunnels a lot of times, because a lot of them had snow and they were far apart, and they wanted to be contained. So they had tunnels that ran just from literally miles of tunnels running between some of those facilities.
Yeah.
And so they started using them for storage after a while, and after the turn of the century, and they needed more space, and and so they would just use the tunnels for storage, and there were lots of storage rooms and operation rooms, and there's one in New York. It's the New York, at the time, that's what they call it, New York State Lunatic Asylum, and down in the basements, they look literally like the catacombs of Paris down there.
No kidding.
It is so creepy down there. You know, you have the stone ceilings, you know, they're
Like
shaped like this. Yeah, they're arched, and dirt floors because the concrete just disintegrated because it was built in the mid 1800s, and it's just the creepiest thing ever. And they had what they called at the time the forensic rooms, and the forensic rooms were nothing more than a gigantic room with concrete floors and rings. About they were concreted into the floor about every 25 feet away, and they would just basically chain those dangerous patients about 25 feet from each other just so they couldn't kill each other.
Oh,
and that was the forensic department. Yeah.
Today we call that group therapy.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So over the years, those tunnels have just become just plastered with junk from the 1800s all the way through the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, and so now they want to try to get all that stuff out of there. So it's hugely historical because you got stuff in there that's 100 years old.
Yeah.
And that forensic room hadn't been accessed. We estimate in probably about 80 years. Had not been accessed in 80 years. And some of the shackles, the chains and the shackles, the big giant padlocks were still attached to the rings in the forensic department like that. So it was just, you find the craziest things in there. So every once in a while, we go through and take more stuff out and categorize it and catalog it, and if it's junk, you know, throw it away, or the place sells it, or and if it's historical, then it goes into the museums or placed into other museums in other facilities, because there's a trend now for state hospitals to start their own museum, but some don't have as much than others do. So we take a lot of times they'll just let us have a lot of the stuff, and then we in turn take it to other facilities and say, here's more stuff for your museum. And so we kind of add and subtract from hospitals to other hospitals like that, and help create their museums, you know, for them.
Wow. Oh, and what a rich history.
Oh, so, it's just amazing. I mean, I literally have storage spaces just filled with stuff from old facilities. It's just spectacular, the things that we pull out of there. You know, I've got blueprints from some of these old sanitariums from the 1800s. Like the entire roll of blueprints from the architect from 1880s or 1908 or whatever, and the entire set of blueprints. And I've got the largest collection of straitjackets, I think, in the country, in all different shapes and made out of different things. Some of them are made out of burlap bags and flour sacks and mattress material, and even small child straitjackets.
Wow.
Some are flowery because they'll take like a pillow or something and use that for patchwork on it.
Oh, think of the terrible irony in having to be in one of those.
Oh my gosh, yes, but it looks nice.
It's like you're in a straitjacket, but it has eagles and nature embroidered on it.
Yeah,
freedom, stuff like that.
Right. That would be awesome. I guess we are sponsored by Burger King today.
Hey, thanks, Burger King, for providing those paid-for drinks.
Thank you very much. The hash brown tots were amazing. By the
now,
way.
okay, talk about like a terrifying psychology. Burger King's mascot. That guy
is he creepy?
He is the scariest thing I've ever seen, I think, on a television commercial.
I mean, Jack in the Box back in the day when the Jack in the Box was actually what you ordered your food from. A lot of people don't even remember that. Early Jack in the Box, you'd pull up to the drive-through, and Jack would be there, and you would talk.
Jack,
the big-headed Jack. You would actually talk to the big speaker in Jack's mouth, and a lot of kids were they were scared to death of Jack. That's why they made him nicer and cooler, and hipper and everything, because he was scaring way too many people.
But it helped make people tougher. That's what we need, is more Jack in the Box drive-thrus.
Oh yes, absolutely. And then, of course, there's Ronald McDonald, and he's got his own scary thing going on there. But Burger King, my God, the King, just that outfit with that big giant head is so creepy. It's like Mardi Gras. It looks like a Mardi Gras.
Yes.
One of those big heads that they march down in the parades with Mardi Gras.
He's like the burger demon.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you look at him, you're like, that's horrifying.
And he just never changes his expression. It's frightening.
And it makes you wonder, like, especially now with the new magic burgers or miracle burgers or whatever they're calling them, is it really Soylent Green?
Impossible burgers.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the contents of it? And where are all of our old people? That's what I wonder with Burger King.
Yeah, right. My God, yes. So, have you had any brainstorms? Have you rubbed anybody's brain like what we do? That's what we do at Pop Psychology Live. We will rub your brain, sometimes the right way, sometimes the wrong way, but we will rub it, sometimes against your will.
Yes.
just warning you right now.
We're very amiable. We're not trying to cause any harm. So
no.
If we do, well.
If you don't want your brain rubbed, then please tune us out completely.
Turn off.
You've been given fair warning.
There's just so much, any day you can just, if you open your eyes, you're going to notice an endless amount of things in this world that really warrant greater discussion and warrant at least questioning, looking at, wondering why it is the way it is, or what it's like to be that way. And so as part of one of the things we do with a semi-empathetic nature is we like to look into things and kind of see what it's like from that viewpoint. Like, how did it get to be that way? And maybe gain a greater understanding. And I think you'll agree with me, Doc, that we kind of feel that if more of the world was able to step out of themselves a little bit and look at it perhaps through the eyes of another, that it may be a very different place.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And what you said was accurate. If you're willing to step out of yourself or your importance and not just what you have to say, but listening to what other people have to say. And that's one of the things in negotiation that make negotiation work is the listening part, not the talking part. The talking part has very little to do with negotiation. Negotiation is all about listening and then allowing that person to feel listened to. And that's basically what every human wants, is for somebody to listen to them. It's not when we're negotiating, when we're doing a crisis negotiation and somebody has a gun to their head or wanting to jump off a building, if they really, in most cases, truly wanted to jump off the building, they would have done it just in a second. If somebody is standing up there deciding whether to jump or not, those are the people that really want to be listened to. They want somebody to say, what's going on? What got you to the place where you had to get all of our attention and standing on the ledge? Because that's what they really want. They want somebody's attention. They want somebody to be listened to. They want to be regarded and important. And so that's the crux of human communication, is not just saying, well, I feel this and then you feel that. It's, let me hear what you have to say. And that's a lot of communication.
And remember that it doesn't just have to be a violent situation or a criminal. When we say negotiations, that can be as simple as maybe your spouse thinks you should make chicken noodle soup one way, and you know that is the wrong way to make it. Right, and you need to impress that the right way to make it is like this.
Right.
So negotiations happen everywhere, whether we're on the road, whether we're negotiating traffic, or we're in the store, or wherever we're at.
And the training that my company does, it's all about that. It's a lot of it has to do with negotiating aggressive, assaultive, dangerous, even deadly individuals. But my training, during the training, I will say, and this applies to every aspect of your life, whether it's home, whether it's at work, whether it's with bosses, whether it's with your children, your spouses, your families, anyone, just anyone that you encounter. The negotiation skills that we talk about are basic, and they're basic whether you're talking with somebody with a gun to their head or somebody at home talking about how to make the dinner. It's the same dynamic. And so all of those things are so important to a good negotiation / relationship, / retail encounter. Doesn't matter. It's all the same.
And an important note on that is that from the negotiation viewpoint, it feels about the same, whether it's a life or death situation or it's how to make a steak on the barbecue.
It can.
It feels very important when you have a position, or you notice somebody else has a very strong position, and the ability to walk that path with them, to where you can each come out of it okay.
Right, and some people feel as passionate about that as well. Whatever it is that they want or want to get across, they become very impassionate about things like that. And it can be just as important as something that's life-threatening to them, because it has to do with their life and their existence and their importance, and what I have to say is important.
Yeah. And so that life and death stuff, you had asked earlier if I was thinking about something, and I had one that I know is a very much an area of expertise for you, with a long lifetime of experience with it. But I kind of wanted to engage you in a discussion on the psychology of stunt people.
Wow, stunt people.
Yes. So from the public standpoint, we almost don't even know they exist, right? I mean, we do. We know that you see Brad Pitt
now,
when Brad Pitt explodes.
Once upon a time in Hollywood, right? Once upon a time in Hollywood, people actually got an introduction to the stunt people, right?
Yeah. So there is now. I mean, there's an awareness that they exist, and but the mentality that takes a person to that, whether it's the love of danger or the challenge of accomplishing this thing that's at a next level from other people, but maybe you just have some insights that you could share on what that's like. For those that don't know, Doc has done stunts for many years. And
I'm a little ADD when it comes to career choices. I had the psychology, but I always had that desire to work in films, and so I just bounce back and forth every once in a while. And yeah, it's I didn't I have a huge amount of respect for people who can just do one thing
Ah,
all their lives
and master it.
and master it, right?
Yeah,
And
what?
it's just amazing. And I just was not able to do that. I had to
Right.
do this and try that for a while, and so that's why I kind of bounced like a ping pong sometimes, the psychology world and the filmmaking world. So yes, I did stunts for many years.
Well, and so there's a common knowledge too that like boys when they're younger like to blow things up. That's
Yeah.
just kind of accepted. It's
Firecrackers.
standard. Obviously, in our modern society, they're like, no, that's not how it should be at all. But we know that reality is that boys love to blow things up.
Yes.
And but then what's different about perhaps the mindset of a stuntman is that they're like, yeah, blow me up. And that's very different because
Yeah.
most people don't go into that realm
Right.
of I want to be blown up.
Yes.
So what's that about?
That's a different level. All right. Yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't have the blow me up part as much, but I did way too many dangerous things when I was a kid, and starting with Hot Wheels, crashing Hot Wheels and doing things like that. That obviously, but then I got on a bicycle and started jumping ramps with bicycles, and then it graduated to mini bikes and go-karts and then dirt bikes, and I just took it further and further, and after a while I was jumping 30-foot ramps with mini bikes and motorcycles, and then it became the creek, jumping ramps from all the way across the creek and making it most of the time, and then my dad would take me out to this farm, and we used to target practice with his collection of firearms, and he was in law enforcement, and he would go out practicing, and I would go out with him, and after I got tired of shooting for a little while, I would go to the barn that was not far away, and I would crawl up the entire inside of the silo, the barn silo. And those things are about 60, 70 feet or so. I would crawl up the entire thing inside, and then they would be filled with grain at the very bottom, and so it would be maybe about 6 feet of grain, and maybe about 70 feet total. And I would climb all the way to the very top of the inside of the barn silo, and then just jump, just inside of it, and fall for 60 feet down into the grain in the middle of it. And so that was just a normal thing I would do. And in barns, I would fall 50 feet into gigantic bales of hay. And so, yeah, that was an early thing. I knew I was destined for something like that. And then
So
when
was
I got
just the draw, like the adrenaline rush? Was it the draw
yes,
of
it was an
this
absolute,
looks like a challenge?
yeah, it was an adrenaline rush, and just that I could, and you see things on TV, and that influences you a lot. You see movies, and at the time, back in the 60s, that was a huge time for stunt movies. You have Bullet, and I remember seeing Bullet when I was a kid, and the chase between the Mustang and the Dodge Charger, and so you saw those kind of stunt movies, and that was just spectacular to me. And then full circle, which was really cool to me, is I remember as a kid seeing Bullet, the movie, and then the stunt coordinator for Bullet, was Carrie Lofton. And then later on, when I came out to Hollywood to be a stuntman, and I actually worked with and then lived with Carrie Lofton and his wife. They were kind of like my second grandparents when I came out here.
Oh, nice.
So it was kind of like a full circle thing. It's like as a kid, I idolized the stunt work he did, And then I became kind of, I was the kid on the couch for a long time when I came out to Hollywood. And they fed me when I didn't have much money, things like that.
What was the very first thing you did as in a stunt role?
Stunt world? Well, I did car stuff in Missouri when I was still there, and I was doing, I would do state fairs, and I would do ramp jumps and put it up on two wheels and crash cars and things like that for like state fairs and little public shows and things like that. So, but that, you know, it didn't pay much, but those were the first actual stunts that I did. And then I came out to Hollywood, and the first movie I ever did was called something like the Magic Orb or something. And I was the Dark Knight, and there are photographs of me as the Dark Knight holding up a sword and in the fantasy land, which was Irvine, California, in the swamps of Irvine, California.
Yeah, nice.
and having sword battles with the prince and the knights and we actually took our lives in our own hands, because the location in Irvine at the time was it's kind of like a nature preserve out there, and it's sea level. So there are swamps and marshes in this area, and they can't do development there, so they just have to kind of leave it there. And but there is actual quicksand in the marshes, and no kidding. And we would be walking out in places and wading through just bogs and grass and things, and then all of a sudden it would go to 30 feet deep, and then but you didn't know, because it all just looked like marshy land out there. And there was a little island where we had to get to do the main battle, right? And they were doing all these telephoto shots from the land part, and then there was this bog and the swampy areas, and there was a little island out there, and we did the big battle on an island. Well, the only way to get to the island was on this little concrete dam barrier that was really old, and it wasn't even flat. It was at an angle like this, right? And so you had to walk across this concrete barrier, and it was about 130 feet, I'd say, over to the island, and on an angle like this. Now, the suit that I had, it was like a suit of armor, and it was a knight and the helmet and the sword and everything. The suit, actually, and this is the cool part, I thought I had arrived in Hollywood, is that the suit of the battle gear that I had on was from the prop department, and that very suit that I was wearing, they actually wore on the Ben-Hur movie with Charlton Heston.
No kidding.
No
Nice.
kidding. And so I was,
you were in legacy armor.
I was in heaven. Oh my God, no kidding. This is from the actual Ben-Hur movie, and I'm wearing this whole big thing, right? And so, but it weighed, the whole thing with all the gear, I'd say about maybe 60 pounds or so. So it added 60 pounds to me going across this little concrete barrier, and there's quicksand on each side.
Nice.
And so I'm like that was a stunt in itself, is 1 foot in front of the other for 130 feet, being careful not to fall, because it was literally a swamp quicksand, and it would have just swallowed me up in a second with 60 pounds of gear. So we made it across.
Would have had a very different sound.
Just kind of a sucking sound. So we made it across, and we did the big battle scene and everything. And I felt like I had taken my life in my hands enough that day. So we scooted across on the way back. which was in itself not comfortable because it was at an angle. It had a sharp point. It wasn't like this, right? So we were, ow, ow, ow.
And had it been more recent times, we would have had some great behind the scenes footage.
Oh my God, yes. My God, yes. And this is probably back in 1980, 81 or so, after I'd first gotten over here.
So we got adrenaline, we got the challenge.
Yes.
We got that ability that a lot of people hope for, is to be someone else, even for a day.
Well, yes, and
not do your mundane, but to be something
right
else.
And that was my first job. Was cool because I wasn't just the stand-in stuntman for a star or an actor. In the cheaper movies, you're both. Okay, yeah. You're the actor and the stuntman,
and you don't get paid for both.
Right? No, it's just one pay. And so I got to be the character, right? So I was actually the character in the movie, nice. the Black Knight and everything, and so that was like my first real stunt. That was really cool. It never hit theaters ever. The actual cameraman, by the way, I'll never forget. His name was Brian, and they had hired him, borrowed him actually, from what his normal wheelhouse is, which was porno films. he was the cinematographer for porno films.
Oh no!
So he was moonlighting as a real cinematographer. And a cameraman. He was really good though. I have to say he got some impressive shots close up.
Yeah, some good close-ups, I imagine.
He was like, "Why are you so close?"
This is a sword fight. He's like, "I know, I do sword fights all the time.
I specialize in sword fights."
Like, back up, Brian.
Get away.
I'm uncomfortable.
Do I know you?
Oh, that's great.
But he was a good camera guy. He was moonlighting as an actual cameraman.
An actual one. That's great.
He was good. He was really good.
Oh wow.
So that was my very first stunt. So there's a psychological component, obviously, but there's actually a physiological component as well, that a lot of people don't know. It's the thrill. It's the getting to be a different person. It's getting to making sure that you're in the film industry and you're doing things and you're able to work on big budget movies and do crazy things and crash cars and fall off buildings and which is all that adrenaline rush. And there's where it starts to go to the physiological part. There's actually enzymes in our brain. We are born with a level of MAO enzymes in our brain. And that level, whatever we're born with, is the level that stays for the rest of our lives. We can raise it and lower it by what we do and the adrenaline that we create, but it'll always go back to that normal level, right? And so people that are accountants and they would say, "Oh, no way, I get scared just going up an elevator." Those individuals were born with an adequate or excessive level of MAO enzymes. And so they don't need the adrenaline to make their brain feel good, to create the endorphins that create that adrenaline. The people that are thrill seekers, like myself, were born with a deficiency of MAO enzymes. And so it's always low. So you feel down, you feel depressed, you feel like, oh, I got to do something. I feel terrible. I want to do something. I got to do something. You know, I want to jump off something. I want to race. I want to do this, right? And that compulsion is based upon the level of MAO enzymes that you have. And so that deficiency creates the need for that adrenaline rush that will create an adequate level of MAO enzymes.
Okay.
But it always drops. It drops back down, right? It's like an addiction. And so that's why people sometimes do stunts without getting paid for it. They have to do it. They race. They climb mountains just because it's there, right? And some of them don't come off the mountain. And it's like people go, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Why would you climb a mountain that people will say you could die doing that? I just have to. I have to. And so it's that compulsion to do that. And that is exactly what's going on inside their brain chemistry, is their MAO enzymes are way low. And so in order to get that up to a normal level, they have to create that adrenaline. It creates the endorphins, and they feel good. They feel like, oh, okay, this is how I feel the best. I feel really good like this, right?
Which puts a lot of
but it drops back down. It drops, and so you're always having to do something to get that back up because it always drops down. And so some people have way low levels, and those are the people that do things for free, that actually pay thousands and thousands of dollars to climb a mountain that they may not survive. Right? Their level is way lower. Mine is low. But I like to get paid for my stunts, and I don't do anything dangerous. I make sure that it's very safe and that we survive those stunts. And I don't do anything that would ever jeopardize my life. And so it's a deficiency, but it's not as low as somebody who might need to climb Mount Everest like that. And then the
requires a good agent.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Somebody keep you busy and
right, exactly. Yeah, right. And so that's basically what agents do. Like they create it. And so then the people with adequate levels, are people that just go, yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. That's crazy. That's just, couldn't you kid? I hate going faster than 50 miles an hour. Those are people with adequate levels. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So physiologically, that's the chemistry of thrill seekers.
And then you tend to have to learn a tremendous amount too, right? So there's always a challenge. I mean, unless you only ever do just one kind of stunt, but my guess is that you do quite a variety, which means that from balancing on a little precipice over some quicksand to being explosively blown out of a catapult type situation,
right,
to driving on two wheels, to high-speed chases in a mail truck as a gorilla.
Who would have done something as idiotic as that?
That sounds crazy. Probably nobody would do that.
that sounds like low-level stuff right there.
Just like the actors also, you are learning all kinds of skills at any given time. So it's always a refreshed knowledge or ability to fine-tune a motor skill of yours to be capable of a particular something, right?
Yeah, that's true. And especially nowadays, it's more than ever before. It's had a progression over the years. When stunts first began, it was just $20 and sure, I'll jump off that train. and most of them survive.
I'll be a pillow, right, to catch me?
No.
All right, well, I'll do it anyway.
Right. And some of them would jump off of a train onto a cactus, and then fall, and they'd get $30 for that. And so there was not a lot of skill other than just being a good athlete. And those are the people who got the stunts, were athletes, swimmers, people like that could actually just take the beating. And that was about being a stuntman back in the turn of the century, and the teens and 20s and 30s, was just being able to take the abuse for at least a little while before your body would just give up. And then the 40s came in and 50s came in, and you actually had people who became specialists at things like the driving or falling, but there were a lot of stunt people that were killed back then. It just was daily life. And then the 40s, 50s, 60s came around, and actually the birth of the technological stuntmen came in, where they were, you know, drawing things out and making calculations. And if you hit at this speed and got this height, and then if you rolled it and did this, you could survive. And then it got better and better. And then by the time the 70s rolled around, it was just full blast. It was like 60s and 70s and 80s were like the stunt high point of film and TV. And, you know, with all the Knight Rider and the Dukes of Hazzards and Fall Guy and Magnum PI and A-Teams and
Cannonball
Run and Cannonball Run, yeah, all the stuff, and which I worked on a bunch of those TV shows and films, and I'm glad that I got in kind of in the heyday of that, because now it's very technical, and it's become something where you can't just go, yeah, I'll jump off that and not turn down a stunt ever. You have specialists who just do this, and they do it very well. And then you've got rigging and computers now that
green screen.
Yeah. And now, obviously, the green screens, you have stunt people now that are very, very good at what they do. But they still, to this day, they'll look at pictures of me, of jumping off a semi truck that's driving down the freeway and jumping into a truck that's passing that semi and jumping into the back of there with no wires, no cords, nothing. It's just me jumping off there, free fall. And you'll have stunt people today, and they just shake their head because they're so used to being tethered and wired, and it's all safe. And even if I miss, it's just gonna kind of swoop,
Yeah.
you know, catch me, you know.
On belay.
I know, right? And they just go, "Oh my God, I don't know how you guys did it back then." You know, it's like, my God, there's no wires, nothing. It's like, God, that would scare me to death. Like, and that's what you hear from stunt people today sometimes, because they're so used to doing that. I saw a stunt the other day, behind the scenes footage of it, and this girl, this woman, stunt woman, got pulled out of a window backwards, crashed out of the window, this second or third story window backwards, and fell down. And there were no pads. There were no pads, no airbag, nothing down there. It was just concrete and steps. And so she crashed out the window and fell down the 3 stories. And then the wires just went woo, and it caught her like literally 14 inches from the concrete. And she had to trust that those wires and the people operating that computer were going to stop before she hit the concrete like that. Yeah. Now that's some guts right there. I would probably have a problem with that. You know, being wired and no pads, no airbags like that. That's the time I would say, okay, you got some guts there, because she really had to trust that the technology was going to save her life. Like that. Wow. It was amazing to me. You know, so it's had this progression, and yes, you have to learn amazing things. Now you have to be very technological to be a stunt person these days, and know a ton of things, because the rule about doing stunts is you never want to turn a stunt down. If you turn a stunt down, if you go, no, I don't think I want to do that, I don't think I can do that, well, that the stunt coordinator is probably not going to hire you again, because he's extended that, and that's an honor to do this stunt, and not very many people get asked to do that stunt. And if you say, no, I don't think so, then that stunt coordinator probably won't hire you again. But that also sets up for failure, because if you say, if like they want you to fall off a building backwards 8 stories into an airbag with no wires, and you go, yeah, I can do that, right? and then you get up there and you go, I can't do this. I can't do this. Oh my God, I've never done this before. Well, then there's a chance you may die. And so stunt coordinator doesn't want that either. They don't want you to tell them that you can do something that you can't as well, because that puts everybody in jeopardy, puts you in jeopardy, puts them in jeopardy, puts the entire production and movie in jeopardy. And they just don't want people dying on their set, right? So it's kind of like it puts stunt people in this really precarious position sometimes of saying, yes, I can do that because I want the work, and there's not much of it anymore, and I don't want to be blackballed because I turned something down, but I don't want to be the guy that says I can do something I can't do either. So
well, and then success will bring its own problems too. You do the 8 story, and then they're like, oh, okay, hey, we've got this 20 story because you did so good on the 8 story. So we'd like you to do a 20 story now. And you're back in that same position.
Right, exactly. And so it's like a vicious cycle. Always. So there's actually stunt people have a rating. And it's what you have done in the past or what you believe you're capable of. And that's like a height rating. Like the most I've ever fallen, a high fall, was about 10 stories. So I'm rated at that. So I'm rated at 10 stories. So comfortably, I know I could do 10 stories. If it's 20 stories, I'm not rated for that. I'd have to look at that situation and then decide if I can do that at that location with that stunt coordinator, with that production, with the airbags. You have to kind of take a look at what you have to work with, because there are people you definitely don't want to work with, and it starts coming out of their mouth and you go, no, because I don't want to work with that person, right? Because they will kill you. I worked on a production back in early 90s, and the director didn't have a lot of experience. The special effects guy had a bunch of experience, but he just wasn't that good, and when I was on the location, I should have taken a hint by the fact that the special effects coordinator had bandages on his fingers. I should have taken that as a clue. But no. I overlooked that.
Yeah, gave him the benefit of the doubt.
I gave him the benefit because I didn't know him. I'd never worked with him before, and so there was a scene where 6 guys needed to be blown up and propelled out of that explosion, but the fire wasn't going to touch them. It was just behind them. And luckily, I was scheduled to be one of those 6 guys, but I traded that stunt for a bigger stunt later on. So I was going to be like blown off the actual ship down in the ports of Los Angeles, and like blown off a ship into the water, because I wanted to do that one more than I just wanted to go boom, on the dirt. So, and the fire was behind, like, oh, whatever. Right? And so there are 3 what's called pods, and they're stationed behind the stunt people, and they have these things called rams. And the ram is just basically a little catapult, and you step on the catapult and it goes bang like that, and it tosses you in the air. And that's where you've seen all those old war movies where an explosion goes off and the soldier goes, and he like flies 30 or 40 feet, right? And that's they've stepped on that thing and went like that and shot them through the air. So there were 6 rams, 6 guys, and the explosion behind. And so at the moment the explosion is supposed to go off, 1, 2, 3, they step on the rams, and all 6 of them get blown toward the camera away from the fireball. Well, the special effects coordinator said, yeah, the fire is going to be about maybe 15 feet by 20 feet or so behind. And so the stunt people were about 10 to 15 feet away from those pods. So they didn't what's called gel up. Gelling up is when you're you're going to be introduced to fire in some way. And so there's a fire retardant that you put on your face, your hands, anything that has skin, you put that on. And so if a blast of fire hits you, it doesn't burn you.
Okay.
Right? So since the fireball is way back there and it's going to throw us away from the fireball, none of those stunt people gelled up. Now, I've been around for so long that even if somebody would say there's going to be a fireball behind you, I would still gel up. Sure. It's just the way I work, right? Because I just don't trust people that much, with things that can blow you up. So I would.
And that's a good healthy fear.
That is a healthy fear.
People should have that.
Absolutely. And it's kept me pretty safe. I've been luckier than a lot of stunt people in the business. I can still walk, a lot of people they've got knees replacements and shoulder replacements and elbow replacements and half their teeth gone and broken their back several times. I've only broken it once. So, that
is fortunate.
Yes. But, I've been really lucky about that stuff. So I would have gelled up anyway. But anyway, so these 6 guys didn't. And so the director came to the effects coordinator and said, okay, you're saying it's going to be like 15 by 20? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know. I would like to fill up the frame a little bit more with more fire. Can you make those pods hotter? And he goes, well, sure, I can make it hotter. I can blow the whole place up if you want. He goes, well, just, give me a bigger fireball. And so he told him to put a gallon more of this, what's called a naphthalene, which is basically like gasoline times 1,000. It's like napalm. Basically, it's like napalm. So if it's vaporized in the air and if there's fire introduced to it, it just creates the biggest fireball ever. So like in the Vietnam War, when you'd see the napalm bombs going off like that, and there's huge thing, that's exactly what naphthalene is. Basically, it's just controlled napalm. Okay. And so he put a gallon more in each pod, which is horrible. This much can make that fireball, right? But he put a gallon more in each pod, which is 3 gallons more than he should have put in. And it was like it was actually over the pod, which it has to be inside the pod because then it directionalizes it in a certain way. It's called a mortar, and it makes that fireball go in a specific direction. Well, it was over the lip, so that means that it was just going to spread out like this. Oh, man. And
I see where this is going.
Yeah, right. So he did that, but he didn't tell the coordinator, the stunt coordinator. He goes, don't tell the stunt coordinator, because then the stunt coordinator will want us to do testing, and that'll put us, we won't be able to film this till tomorrow. And so he didn't. So he buckled to that pressure, the effects coordinator, which no good effects coordinator would ever do, because they know that would be the last job they would ever have, and they're going to burn a bunch of people like that. But he did it anyway. So didn't tell. And I since I wasn't doing the stunt, I actually had a camera on the stunt, because sometimes we use our personal video cameras to document stunts if anything goes wrong, right? And so I was the person way back shooting this thing, and there were like 3 cameras up there. Well, when they said 1, 2, 3, and the guy hit that button, it was like Hiroshima. It just, everything disappeared. Like when you see an atomic blast and that light hits you and you can't see anything, right? It's just white, right? That's what happened on that set. Oh man. And the blast blew out so fast and so hard that it engulfed the guys that were they were still in the Rams when the explosion hit. And so the fireball went past them 40 feet past them.
Holy mackerel.
Right. And just, they disappeared in a gigantic fireball. The fireball went up about 120 feet.
Oh man.
It was a legitimate gigantic fireball that blew up San Pedro. And it went out 40 feet around like that, and went out 60 feet and hit all three cameras, burned all three cameras, burned all the stunt equipment, burned all the pads, and the guys actually just disappeared in the fireball. And to this day, the scene that you would see, you see the fireball and you see all six of them coming out of the fireball in the air.
Oh man.
Right? And burned all six of them and put them all in the hospital.
Holy
and
man.
second and third degree burns on their fingers and nose and lips, and all three of them were in the hospital after that. So, but luckily we had documented the whole thing, and we weren't dependent on their footage, because sometimes their footage gets lost sometimes.
Yeah, right.
So I had mine, and when it went to court later on, they used my footage, and all six got settlements, plus all new equipment, plus some extra, and but that was because my footage captured everything. And oh, by the way, and I had on a tripod for a while. I got him actually arming the bombs, right? And they were like overfilled, so you could actually see them overfilled. And there was one point, I love this. There's one point he walks through with a cigarette. There's a special effects coordinator. He walks through with a cigarette.
Oh no.
3 napalm bombs. He's got a cigarette working on.
Like, what school did you go to, fella?
I know, my God, it was just insane, right? And all that I got on video, and it was just, the whole thing was just a horrendous accident. So obviously he lost his license, and after that, but yeah, that's a lot of production. Sometimes you see who's on there and you go, whoop, nope, not gonna work with that guy.
Yeah.
Especially, so don't ever work on a film. Anybody who's watching this is in the film business. Do not ever work on a film where the special effects coordinator has bandages on his fingers.
No fingers.
or no fingers, right? Whatsoever. No, I'm good at what I do.
We almost always get you through this safe.
Woo. Yeah.
Wow, that is just nuts.
Yeah. So those kind of
there's
things.
A lot of pressure.
It's a huge amount of pressure, right? And you have to trust that all these people working together are actually good at what they do in keeping people safe. And sometimes it doesn't work. And wow. No.
So it's the adrenaline, it's the challenge, it's the skills, it's the bragging rights.
Absolutely, bragging rights.
The subdued fame. Mm-hmm. Like, that was me. That wasn't you. Yeah, that was me.
It doesn't look like you.
Nobody knows it's you.
No, that's the actor.
Yeah. Nobody knows it's you kind of fame.
Right, except for Tom Cruise, because he does most of all of his own stunts.
Oh, does he?
Oh yeah. Okay. To the dismay of everybody who works with him, because they're all just going, he's gonna die, he's gonna die, he's gonna die, and the stunt guy just sits around and makes money just sitting around just in case Tom doesn't want to do a stunt.
It all started with that slide on the waxed floors in his socks and underwear, and that made him think he could do any stunt.
He got that adrenaline rush.
He's like, oh, I'm gonna do this from now
risky business. That they duplicated it at Domino's, by the way. I love that.
Right, I've seen that.
Yeah.
So that's his origins.
Right.
Stunt work.
Yeah. So it is. It's like when you look back and you see all those classic TV shows and movies, and a part of it is, I was a part of that, and that was a really cool time in stunt work, and that was like the time, even once upon a time in Hollywood, the stunt man who was the stunt man of The Star, in that Brad Pitt played a character that's pretty much his name was Hal Needham, and Hal Needham was the greatest stuntman ever. 70s, he hung up his stunt pads and became a director, and he started directing Burt Reynolds and White Lightning and Smoking the Bandit, and like that's where he progressed from a stuntman in 1976 to a director, a stuntman and stunt coordinator, to a director in 1976, 77 with Smoking the Bandit, and he never had to do stunts after that.
Okay.
He just, then he did all the Cannonball Runs and the Smoking the Bandits and a lot of other things that Burt did. But that basically was supposed to be Hal Needham. And because it looked like him, he acted like him. It was just kind of like Quentin Tarantino took Hal Needham and that's what he had Brad Pitt study, and he was the greatest stuntman ever. And I rest his soul. I loved Hal. Hal was a great man, and I had run into Hal years and years ago before I even got to Hollywood. He was out actually scouting for Smoking the Bandit when I ran into him, and that's a story we'll do for another time.
Okay.
Because there's a big, wild, crazy story about the scouting locations for Smoking the Bandit, and then later on, and then I came out to Hollywood and everything, but later on I looked Hal up and we became friends, and we used to go out to races together, like the Saugus Speedway, which is a little bitty speedway in California, not far from Magic Mountain, up in Valencia, Newhall area of north of Los Angeles. And just a little bitty speedway. They have a little swap meet every Sunday. But you see it if you watched all those old TV shows like Knight Rider and Fall Guy and all that. They always used, they'd have like the small town speedway in the storyline of the TV show or something. They would always use the Saugus Speedway for that.
Okay.
But it was a functioning speedway. So every weekend they'd have races, and I would go watch the races, and Hal loved just those little roundy round races. And so he and I would show up and watch the races together at the Saugus Speedway. And then since he was Hollywood kingdom, he was royalty. Every once in a while, somebody would just pop by and sit with Hal and I. I remember one night I was with Hal, and we were watching the Saugus Speedway, and they're just little stock cars, and it's just local stock cars. There's nothing NASCAR about it, and so we're sitting there, and we see this woman, and it catches both of our attention. She's walking up the grandstands, and it's Linda Hamilton.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and she just comes up and sits down right in between us, and because she loves Hal, and so we just then Linda Hamilton and Hal and I sat and watched the Speedway for that whole night, and partied afterwards, and so just every once in a while somebody would, because nobody knew me, but everyone knew Hal, so I just got the benefits of Hal being there,
Hal.
and everybody knowing Hal was there. And so every once in a while, Star would just come up and sit between, and we would watch the whole Speedway together.
Nice.
Yeah. Those were great times. And then we'd go to Burt Reynolds' house at Carrowood Drive in Beverly Hills and watch stunt movies, just like on Hooper. So Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds and other stunt people, and we'd all just sit around, just like it was exactly like the scene in Hooper, where they're all sitting around. Half of the people are asleep. Most of them are drunk sleep. And there's just a few people still watching the films, the old stunts that they used to do and stuff. It was just like that, just in an old Western room with like a little theater, watching old stunt reels and stuff. And those were good times. That's why you do it. Those are the times that I think back on, and those are the times where I go, that's why I became a stuntman. You know, is because just of being able to remember times like that.
Well, and the quality of the people that you were hanging out with.
Oh God,
is what changed.
The best human beings on earth.
You've commented on that lately, how or recently, how it's changed to become a lot of people you don't necessarily want to hang out with.
No.
But there was a time when, you know, these were your best friends. These were your comrades.
A lot of people now are out for themselves because it's such a competitive situation.
And the
back
money.
Then, and the money. And back then, it was just a brotherhood, a sisterhood of people that were close, and you would die for that person. You know, I remember it was like so cliche, and sitting at an El Torito with another stunt guy, and he was way more drunk than I was. And he did the whole cliche thing of, you know, like grabbing me behind the neck and bumping his head. He goes, dude, brother, I would take a bullet for you, man. I love you so much. I'd take a bullet for you, man. and you know that would be true. He would, you know, the guy's like a special forces ranger and stuff before he became a stuntman, and like he would do that. He would, like, he's just made of that, you know. And those are the people that I was around at that time, and it was just an amazing time. And I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that. You know, it's like I had my site career, and I'd always done that, but that's not like a regular thing. You know, negotiations are kind of a part-time job. You know, it's not like you schedule and you clock in. Okay, what do we got scheduled for today? Well, we got a guy on a roof, and there's a building on 8th Street. The guy's down there, the bridge over the 210.
Hostage situation at 3 o'clock.
Situation happening at 3 p.m. today. So it's not really a scheduled thing. So they call you when they need you. And which is exactly the same thing with stunt work, right? So they call you when they need you. So I kind of had the ability to mesh those two worlds together that way, and that's the only reason I could do that. You know, if I would have gotten a regular job, 9-to-5 job, then I wouldn't have been able to. You know, if I would have been a therapist or something, never would have been able to do film work.
Right.
But the fact that I did what I did, and I created a business really early, it allowed me the ability to go off and do my adolescent thing of becoming a stuntman.
I know we're almost at time here for today. I'm going to have to hop off myself.
Well, fine. Be that way.
I know. I hate to cut it short.
No, that's fine. We've got many more weeks coming.
Yes, we do.
We have a new sponsor, letting you know. New sponsor.
Not Burger King, huh? Not the Burger Demon?
Burger King. Bigger, much larger than Burger
Bigger than the Burger Demon.
Yes. It is Belladonna's sweet pasta sauce.
Oh, finally.
There we go. Belladonna sweet pasta sauce.
We've been after them for years.
That jar, my God, this is like crack cocaine. This stuff is so good. It's a sweet pasta sauce, not the usual pasta sauce that is garlicky and tomatoey. It's got herbs and sweetness in it, and it's like in love. I have literally heard people at foodie-con events, and they took samples of it, and they said this, and I quote, oh, "It tastes like Christmas." That's what they said, and several people have said that.
No kidding.
Yes, so there's got a component in it that is comforting, and so I recommend Belladonna's sweet pasta sauce. If you go to Instagram, Belladonna Foods. So Instagram, Belladonna Foods. You can find her Instagram there. Instagram/Belladonna Foods.
And we
just at Belladonna Foods. She's got websites coming and things like that. But nicely done. There's the the silhouette,
nice.
the silhouette on the back. It's got the whole history and everything, so it's really nice, nicely jarred. These are fresh, just came out of the production. These are not bottled in somebody's kitchen, by the way. This is professionally bottled at a bottling plant, and went off to UC Davis to have all the nutritional things. So it's all professional and ready for stores, things like that. So Belladonna's nice. Sweet pasta sauce, our new sponsor.
Fantastic.
All right.
Well, all right. I'm waiting for samples.
Yes, we will mail you those. If you haven't figured out already, Belladonna is my wife. That would be Donna, Belladonna. And that is her sweet pasta sauce.
And by sponsoring that means that she allows you to do the show.
Correct. That is 100% correct. Right.
All right.
Thank you very much, sweetie. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yes, our kids, by the way, drink this cold like V8.
No kidding.
They do. So it's
year round, not just at Christmas.
No, not just at Christmas. So okay. it's got a taste that since it's not garlicky and tomatoey, since it's a sweet taste, they actually drink it like V8, and they
this sounds very unique.
They demand this at least every Sunday. We have it like 2 or 3 nights a week, since we have like 1 million cases of them. But Sundays they expect this. This is like you have to have sauce on Sundays, right? They love it.
It sounds so unique.
Yes, it is. So thank you very much, Belladonna Sweet Pasta Sauce, for our sponsorship, honey.
Fantastic.
All right.
Remember what you heard here stays here. That it should not be taken to court. Should not be.
What happens in Pop Psychology Live stays in Pop Psychology Live. Please do not follow any of our advice or point of views. It will not work out for you.
The first rule of Pop Psychology Live is do not listen to Pop Psychology Live.
Yes. Next week, we have actually an agenda of pop psychology, popular psychology, facts and myths. Yes. So that's a great thing to tune into for next week.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I am signing off, and I think so are you.
Yes, we are.
We don't have any credits to roll or any going away sound or anything like that.
Here's the final graphics. The graphics to roll up the screen.
There we go.
The graphics.
There's the credits. Thanks for playing along, everybody, and have a great week.